When she finally breaks the silence, most men feel a rush of relief. The waiting is over, the uncertainty fades, and they assume the hardest part is behind them. But this is exactly where most men get it wrong. Her message doesn't mean the situation is fixed, and it definitely doesn't mean she's fully back emotionally. It simply means she felt safe enough to open the door slightly. What happens next determines whether that door opens wider or quietly shuts again. Breaking the silence is rarely about resolution, it's about curiosity, comfort, and checking the emotional temperature. She's testing whether reconnecting feels safe or stressful. If the first thing she senses is pressure, expectation, or emotional intensity, her instinct will be to pull back again. The silence may have ended, but the emotional dynamic hasn't reset yet. Many men misinterpret this moment as a green light to explain everything they felt during the distance. They unload emotions, ask for clarity, or try to lock things down. While it may feel honest, it communicates insecurity and urgency. From her perspective, it confirms the very reason she needed space in the first place. Attraction doesn't return through explanations, it returns through emotional safety. Her message is not an invitation to pick up where things left off. It's an evaluation point. She's paying close attention to your energy, not your words. Is your response calm or charged, relaxed or reactive, confident or needy? Even subtle over investment can shift the balance in the wrong direction. Another common mistake is assuming her reaching out means she missed you deeply. Sometimes it does, but often it simply means the silence created enough emotional tension for her to engage lightly. That doesn't equal commitment. Treating it as such creates pressure she didn't consent to yet. This moment requires patience and restraint. The goal isn't to impress or resolve, it's to reestablish ease. Responding in a grounded, emotionally neutral way signals that you're stable, not desperate for outcome. That stability is what makes her feel safe continuing. Think of her message as a knock, not an entrance. You don't throw the door open and pull her inside. You acknowledge the knock calmly and let her step in at her own pace. When you understand this, you stop sabotaging opportunities that seem promising but are still fragile. Stay centered, stay patient, and let the reconnection unfold naturally. The moment she breaks the silence, emotion spikes for most men. There's excitement, relief, and a sense that this is the chance to get everything back on track. That emotional surge is exactly why overinvestment happens so quickly. Men respond with long messages, explanations, inside jokes, or an energy that's far louder than the moment calls for, and without realizing it, they kill the momentum before it ever has a chance to build. Overinvestment in the first reply communicates urgency. Even if your words are positive, the emotional weight behind them sends a signal that you've been waiting, hoping, and holding your breath. That pressure is felt immediately. Her simple outreach suddenly feels like a responsibility rather than a choice. Attraction doesn't grow under that weight, it shrinks. When she reaches out, she's not looking for proof of how much you care. She's looking for emotional consistency. She wants to see if you stayed grounded during the silence or if you were emotionally stuck in it. A calm, measured response tells her that your life continued, that you're stable, and that you don't need immediate reassurance to feel okay. Long explanations are especially damaging in this moment, explaining how confused you were, how hard the silence felt, or how much you thought about her turns the interaction into emotional labor. It places her in a position where she has to manage your feelings. That's the opposite of attraction. Attraction thrives when she feels free, not obligated. Even enthusiasm can work against you if it's disproportionate. Too much excitement too soon shifts the dynamic from mutual curiosity to imbalance. She starts feeling like she has more power, more control, or more emotional responsibility. And when that happens, she instinctively pulls back to restore equilibrium. A short, relaxed response does something powerful. It lowers emotional pressure and reestablishes balance, tells her that you're open to connection but not dependent on it. That emotional restraint is what keeps the door open. Think of the first reply as setting the tone. It's not about winning her back, it's about signaling that reconnection can happen without drama or intensity. When you don't rush, she feels safe taking the next step. Restraint isn't indifference, it's confidence, and confidence keeps momentum alive. When she breaks the silence, the words she sends matter far less than how you respond emotionally. Most men focus on crafting the perfect message, thinking the right combination of words will secure the outcome. But what she's actually watching is your emotional control. She's reading between the lines, sensing whether you stayed centered during the silence or whether you've been emotionally building tension, frustration, or resentment. Her message is a test of your inner state, not a conscious one, but an instinctive evaluation. She wants to know if reconnecting feels calm or chaotic. If your response carries emotional charge, sarcasm, passive aggression, excitement, or urgency, it signals that the silence affected you deeply. That tells her the dynamic is still fragile. Emotional control shows itself in tone, pacing, and restraint. A calm response communicates that you're emotionally regulated and secure. It tells her that distance doesn't destabilize you. And that stability is what creates safety. Safety is the foundation. Attraction needs to grow again. Many men unknowingly reveal resentment in subtle ways. Short, cold replies meant to punish, jokes with an edge, delayed responses designed to regain control. These behaviors might feel justified, but they communicate emotional volatility. From her perspective, they confirm that closeness could lead to conflict or emotional unpredictability. On the other end of the spectrum, overenthusiasm sends a similar signal. It shows emotional dependency rather than stability. Whether it's anger or excitement, intensity in either direction indicates a lack of emotional balance. True confidence is neutral. It's relaxed, warm, and unreactive. When you respond from that place, you show that you didn't take the silence personally. That alone shifts the dynamic. She feels less pressure, less guilt, and more freedom to engage. This moment is about demonstrating emotional leadership. Leadership isn't about directing her feelings, it's about managing your own. When she sees that you can handle uncertainty without losing composure, trust builds naturally. Words can be forgotten. Emotional impressions linger. If reconnecting with you feels easy, attraction has space to return. Stay calm. Let your emotional control do the talking. After she breaks the silence, many men fall into a familiar trap. They keep the conversation going just to keep it alive. Texts go back and forth with no direction, no intention, and no leadership. It feels safe in the moment because at least communication is happening, but safety isn't the same as attraction. And this is where momentum quietly dies. Endless texting creates the illusion of progress. Words are exchanged, jokes are made, updates are shared, yet nothing actually moves forward. Attraction thrives on forward motion, not maintenance. When conversation lacks direction, it slowly drains emotional tension, leaving behind comfort without desire. She didn't reach out to become a pen pal. She reached out to test whether reconnecting feels easy, grounded, and potentially meaningful. If the interaction stalls in neutral conversation, her curiosity fades. The emotional spark that prompted her to reach out begins to dissolve. Direction doesn't mean pressure. It doesn't mean forcing plans or rushing outcomes. It means gently leading the interaction towards something real, a call, a meet up, a shared experience. Leadership creates clarity, and clarity creates comfort. Many men avoid leading because they fear pushing her away. Ironically, the lack of leadership creates the very outcome they're trying to avoid. Without direction, she starts feeling unsure. And uncertainty in this context doesn't create attraction, it creates disengagement. The goal is to move from talking to experiencing. Experiences rebuild connection far more effectively than words. A calm suggestion made without attachment shows confidence. It communicates that you're open to seeing her, but perfectly fine if it doesn't happen immediately. When you lead with ease, you relieve her of emotional responsibility. She doesn't have to guess what you want or where things are going. That relief is attractive because it feels stable and mature. Direction also demonstrates self respect. You're not clinging to conversation for validation, you're engaging with purpose. That purpose makes interaction feel intentional rather than reactive. This moment isn't about locking anything down, it's about creating a path forward without pressure. When you lead calmly, you transform her reaching out from a test into an opportunity. Move the conversation forward gently, confidently, and without attachment. When she breaks the silence, many men fall into a familiar trap. They keep the conversation going just to keep it alive. Texts go back and forth with no direction, no intention, and no leadership. It feels safe in the moment because at least communication is happening. But safety isn't the same as attraction, and this is where momentum quietly dies. Endless texting creates the illusion of progress. Words are exchanged, jokes are made, updates are shared, yet nothing actually moves forward. Attraction thrives on forward motion, not maintenance. When conversation lacks direction, it slowly drains emotional tension, leaving behind comfort without desire. She didn't reach out to become a pen pal. She reached out to test whether reconnecting feels easy, grounded, and potentially meaningful. If the interaction stalls in neutral conversation, her curiosity fades. The emotional spark that prompted her to reach out begins to dissolve. Direction doesn't mean pressure. It doesn't mean forcing plans or rushing outcomes. It means gently leading the interaction toward something real, a call, a meet up, a shared experience. Leadership creates clarity, and clarity creates comfort. Many men avoid leading because they fear pushing her away. Ironically, the lack of leadership creates the very outcome they're trying to avoid. Without direction, she starts feeling unsure. And uncertainty in this context doesn't create attraction, it creates disengagement. The goal is to move from talking to experiencing. Experiences rebuild connection far more effectively than words. A calm suggestion made without attachment shows confidence. It communicates that you're open to seeing her, but perfectly fine if it doesn't happen immediately. When you lead with ease, you relieve her of emotional responsibility. She doesn't have to guess what you want or where things are going. That relief is attractive because it feels stable and mature. Direction also demonstrates self respect. You're not clinging to conversation for validation, you're engaging with purpose. That purpose makes interaction feel intentional rather than reactive. This moment isn't about locking anything down, it's about creating a path forward without pressure. When you lead calmly, you transform her reaching out from a test into an opportunity, move the conversation forward gently, confidently, and without attachment. When she breaks the silence, it's easy to feel like this is your moment, your chance to get things back on track. And that's exactly why outcome dependence becomes so dangerous here. The moment you start treating her message like your last opportunity, your behavior shifts, subtle urgency creeps in, your tone changes, and even if you don't realize it, she feels it. Outcome dependence puts emotional weight on the interaction. It turns a simple exchange into something loaded with expectation. When you need the conversation to go a certain way, you stop being present and start performing. Attraction can't survive in that environment. It needs space to breathe. When you remain outcome independent, the energy changes completely. You respond because you want to, not because you need reassurance. You engage without attaching your self worth to her reply speed, tone, or follow up. That emotional neutrality creates freedom, and freedom is what allows desire to resurface naturally. Most men lose this freedom by mentally projecting too far ahead. They imagine reconnection, reconciliation, or closure before the conversation has even found its rhythm. That projection creates pressure and pressure because she didn't reach out to step into a heavy emotional situation. She reached out to test whether reconnecting feels light and safe. Outcome independence communicates strength. It shows that you're open but not attached, interested but not invested in forcing a result. That balance makes you emotionally attractive because it signals confidence and self respect. When you don't act like this message defines everything, she relaxes. She doesn't feel like she has to deliver an outcome or meet an expectation. That relief removes the emotional burden she often associates with closeness. And when that burden lifts, attraction has room to grow. This mindset also protects you. It keeps you from overanalyzing every message or reading meaning into every pause. You stay present, grounded, and authentic, and authenticity always outperforms strategy. Outcome independence isn't passive. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without attachment. You're willing to see where things go, but you're also okay if they don't. That emotional self sufficiency is powerful. When she senses that you're not clinging to a result, the interaction becomes easier. And when interaction feels easy, desire has space to return. Stay open, stay relaxed, let go of the need to control the outcome. When she breaks the silence, the moment isn't about getting her back or securing a result. It's about how you show up under pressure. This is where calm leadership matters most. Not the loud kind, not the controlling kind, but the steady, grounded presence that communicates confidence without force. Most men fail here because they confuse leadership with persuasion. In reality, leadership is emotional. Calm leadership begins with self regulation. You don't rush, you don't over explain, you don't try to fix the past or predict the future. You stay present. That presence creates stability, and stability is what allows attraction to reset. When she feels that interacting with you doesn't create emotional turbulence, she relaxes into the connection. Leadership also shows in how you guide the interaction forward without attachment. You're willing to suggest a direction, a call, a meet up, a next step, but you're not emotionally invested in whether it happens immediately. This balance signals confidence. It says you know what you want, but you don't need validation to feel okay. Many men either become passive or pushy in this moment. Passivity feels safe but communicates indecision. Pushiness feels decisive but creates pressure. Calm leadership sits in the middle. It's clear without being forceful and inviting without being needy. This is also where patience becomes powerful. You allow the dynamic to unfold naturally. You don't rush her process or demand certainty. By giving her room, you show respect, not just for her, but for yourself. Self respect is the foundation of attraction. Calm leadership resets the emotional tone, it shifts the interaction from reaction to intention. You're no longer responding to her silence or her message. You're engaging from a place of choice. That shift changes everything. When she experiences you as steady, decisive, and emotionally secure, her fear diminishes. The connection no longer feels risky, it feels grounded. And grounded attraction is the kind that lasts. This moment isn't about winning, it's about revealing who you are when things matter. Show up with calm confidence and let the reset happen naturally.